One evening, long after business hours, two men, alone on the main floor of a great Midwestern store, discussed the making of a mural to adorn the space above the elevator entrances. These men, president of the store and Tucker's leading painters, having decided on a subject, agree on an immediate start of the work. The artist, in accepting the commission, would lay 5 by 22 feet. He first experiments with rhythmic designs or dynamic patterns, working to create an interesting composition for the area to be covered. Mr. Benton makes many of these before he is satisfied he has a good basic pattern. The final sketch is then elaborated in a rough pencil drawing of Mr. Benton's idea or plan for the mural. The lines of the drawing follow the base rhythms of the sketch. Next, the pencil drawing is given third dimension in a clay model. The emphasis is not yet on fine detail, but on the overall effect. Modeling in clay is a necessary step in the Benton style of painting, strongly three-dimensional, Renaissance period. It depends in large part on the use of light and shadow. The clay model under diffused light is flat and uninteresting. The group is not drawn together, as it is when a strongly directed light radiates from a central overhead point. Thus, with light, the artist makes the figures stand out from the background and centers the interest. This effect is obvious. Transferred to a small idea for the mural appears for the first time in color. Based on a theme from Greek mythology, it portrays the struggle for the favor of a Greek princess between Hercules and the river god, ACHELOUS, who has assumed the shape of a bull, and is, in this instance, symbolic of man's struggle with the Missouri River and conquest of its broad and fertile valley. This small-scale color panel completes the artist's basic work. Except for details, it appears as the finished mural will appear and will be submitted for the patron's approval. Now, details become important, and the artist calls in live models. He catches tenseness and movement. Shading indicates attention to the third dimension, which is further developed in additional clay models, both of single figures and groups. They show in their greater detail the artist's careful preparation. All of these aids, the clay models and the sketches, are consulted by the artist as he prepares a cartoon or outline drawing of the mural. Every line, every form that will appear in the finished mural is here indicated in miniature. If corrections are to be made, they must be made at this time. The cartoon is of the exact proportions of the planned mural. It is marked off into squares to simplify the transfer of the drawing to the large panel. The squares are numbered and lettered. The completed cartoon also shows the flat color fill-ins, which roughly define the areas of light and shade. And now, with the mural panel set up in his studio, Mr. Benton checks the alignment of the frame which supports the canvas. Then he begins the squaring of the panel. Because of its extreme length, he uses tightly stretched threads for the horizontal lines. For the verticals, lightly drawn charcoal lines. The content of each small square on the cartoon will occupy a corresponding larger square on the mural. In areas where there's a great amount of detail, the squares are subdivided to assure accurate transfer. Then, square by square, the cartoon is transferred to the canvas. After the scaling up process is completed, Mr. Benton prepares his paints. He uses the yolks of eggs as the binder for his pigments. His paint must dry quickly because he is working to meet a time limit. The solvent is made by mixing the yolks with distilled water. It is thoroughly blended with the raw pigment, making a quick-drying tempera color. The mixed paints will not exactly match those of the original small painting, but they must appear to do so at the average viewing distance, which will be about 30 feet. The charcoal lines of the drawing gradually give way to color. In areas of complicated form, Mr. Benton uses brown and white tone masses, technically known as underpainting, to determine the three-dimensional effect on the flat surface. The artist makes frequent reference during the course of the painting to his clay models and sketches to perfect detail. Square by square, paint fills in the outlines of the drawing. Then, after the figures and landscape are filled in, Mr. Benton goes over his work. Deft touches of paint bring out the luminous three-dimensional character of his painting. Mr. Benton uses a diminishing glass for regular appraisal of his colors, through the glass to the size of the small color sketch from which he is working. Thus, even though working in the confines of the effect of the 30-foot viewing distance, 7 distinct tones of blue are required for the sky, from the deep blue of the dome to the hazy blue of the horizon. This sky paint is mixed with a binder of vinylite and beeswax. Although it dries as rapidly as tempera, this binder permits the brushing out and even blending of the paint. Mr. Benton paints in his sky after the figures and objects along the skyline are virtually completed. Painting the figures over the sky background would cause the colors to lose their proper hue. Again, the artist compares his colors to the original, and not to match them, but to make sure they will appear the same on the mural. In the finished sky, all 7 shades of blue are smoothly blended. The mural is apparently complete, but the hand of the master painter is disclosed in a few finishing touches. Now the full three-dimensional effect is realized. The rhythmic movement of the form shows clearly. Facial expressions are fully developed. And all the colors of the mural are gathered together in the fruits. The result of nearly 8 months of dreaming, planning, and hard work. An old legend of man's struggle to master his environment is brought to life again in Missouri. Finally, the last of several protective coats of wax before the mural is moved to the store. And now framed and mounted on the store's wall, the mural fulfills its function. A lasting contribution to the art of America and of the world.